farmers really wouldn't do anything without land. There's all this talk about that, we can produce food in the lab and, all that, but we really need land to produce food. So land rights, or, what you'll call access to land is one thing, and then control over land is another thing. So at KENAFF, we look at not just access, but also control. And this is where land rights, of course, and land governance becomes important. So can a farmer, a lot of farmers maybe can access the land that they farm on, but do they have control over that land? That is very important, because unless you have control, you cannot maybe securitize that land. You cannot go out and take out a loan to improve your agricultural enterprise. You cannot maybe lease out that land. So for us at KENAFF, it is very important that the farmers that we work with do not only have access, but also control over the land they work in. In looking at these issues, you realize that young people and women face the most challenges as far as this is concerned, because a lot of young people in this country rely on the land that is owned by their parents, and a lot of times that land is passed on for whatever reason, maybe cultural or some other reasons, is passed on after the parents pass on as well. So a lot of young people who are in agriculture are struggling with not just even control. Control for young people is not even a consideration, but access. They are not able to access land on which to do agriculture. And yet, everyone and their grandmother is really telling young people that there's a lot of money to be made in agriculture. You need to join the agricultural sector, along the value chain, all this talk. I'm sure even over this week, a lot of that has been talked about, but without really looking without really addressing the issue of where do these young people get this land from. When it comes to women, until around, I think 10 years ago, there were issues about women having control over land, because land mostly belongs to fathers or husbands, but of course, again, in the Kenyan context, this has changed, because now women can have control over land in the sense that, a father, when a father passes on, or when parents pass on, in the past, the practice was land would be left to the sons and not the daughters. But now the law has changed in Kenya, and daughters or children are treated equally as far as land is concerned at the family level. So this is important, because then it gives women a chance to also own their father's land. It also gives them an opportunity to go out and buy land that they can claim as theirs. We do believe that, of course, this is very important, because having title over the land that you are working on is important, in that you can lease that land, or you can securitize it, get a loan, improve that, whatever you're doing on that land in one way or the other. Others has talked about trees, and this is actually something that is very self-evident. I believe in Kenya and most other African countries, and I would say, let me remain in the African context. If you see land that has no developments at all, maybe someone is farming on that land, but it doesn't have trees. There are no trees growing on that land. It doesn't have any developments at all. Chances are that whoever is farming on that land has no control over that land. And you cannot talk about, climate action, adapting to climate action, building resilience against climate action, if we do not address issues to do with access to land, control over land, and all laws that govern land use and management. So for us at KENAFF, we have four strong organs that address themselves to these issues to do with land. One is what we call KENAFF Women, and this is an organ that brings together all the women farmers in the country that are KENAFF members. And what they do, among other things, obviously, is to agitate at various levels in different forums, to agitate on issues that have to do with women's access and control over land. We also have KENAFF Youth. KENAFF Youth also brings together young people who are KENAFF members from across the country, and they also, among other things, address these aspects of land, because like I have said, young people, we cannot tell young people you need to go into agriculture, but not addressing a very important factor of production, which is land. We also have the Commodities Council. Commodities Council brings together national commodity associations This includes Cereal Growers Association, Kenya Coffee Producers Association, Tea Growers Association, and all other national commodity associations. They also address land issues because they are very important to their members. And then, of course, we have what we call the National Farmers Assembly, which brings together the leaders of all farmer groups, farmer associations, farmer cooperatives that constitute the KENAFF membership, brings them together, all the leaders, under this organ called the National Farmers Assembly, and it also, among other things, addresses issues to do with access to land and control over land. Another thing that they address themselves to, these four organs, is land use. For those of us who come from Kenya, I don't know, maybe most of us here, you know, about 15, 20 years ago, there was a big debate in Parliament about fixing the ceiling on land fragmentation. You know that as a country, we are suffering a lot from land fragmentation. If you look at a very productive county like Kiambu, it has been fragmented into very small land sizes because real estate makes more money than agriculture. That is now spreading to other very agriculturally rich counties like Narok, and Nakuru, and Uasin Gishu, and Nandi, and Meru. And this is a challenge we must contend with as a country, because if we continue dividing the sizes of land, it means that in about 10, maybe even less than 10 years, we'll not be able to feed ourselves as a country. As it were, Kenya is a net importer of food. We import a lot of food, but this will get to us as time goes by, because even the little land that we have, because again, we all know that Kenya is a water scarce country. Most of our land is not really arable. The small arable land that we have has been has gone into real estate. So land use is another issue that we are struggling with at KENAFF, because we would like the government really to put their foot down and say that if it is agricultural land, it is agricultural land. If it is agricultural land, you cannot divide it below 5 acres, for instance. Of course, that debate about 15, 20 years ago did not do so well in Parliament, because there are a lot of cultural attachments to land in this country. But I think political will is required for us really to get past this, because if we continue subdividing the land, pretty soon we are not going to have land on which to do agriculture. And then if I had to just briefly talk about what we are doing as the National Farmers Federation, that is related to this, other than these four organs addressing themselves to issues of land access, land control, control over land, and then land use management policies and laws, is since 2021 we are implementing a very ambitious 10-year program that we are calling KENAFF Farm Forestry and Afforestation Program. And in this really, we are talking about these issues because ours was to, we convinced ourselves that as one key thing we can do as the National Farmers Organization is one thing we can contribute to climate action is having our members understand the essence of growing trees, different kinds of trees, taking care of issues to do with biodiversity conservation on their land. You know, not the one here is on their land, because we are not going to plant an indigenous tree that will take 20, 30, 40 years to grow on land that does not belong to you. And this is why we say that it should be on your land, because we have a formula that we are doing this. We are saying that 50% of the trees that you plant have to be indigenous to the area where you are. So if you are in Kilifi, you should not grow trees that do well in Turkana or, Makueni. 50% of the trees that you plant have to be indigenous to Kilifi. That means you not plant 50% of indigenous trees on land that does not belong to you. 30% have to be fruit and founder, because we are also looking at nutrition outcomes at the household level. And then for fins, because farmers also keep livestock. So 30% have to be fruits and fruit and founder. That is 30%. And then 20% has to be fast maturing. Fast maturing because farmers have needs, economic needs. They need to sell timber. They need to sell posts. They need to do a bit of construction at home. They need to do to prune for fuel wood, because let's face it, a lot of our farmers across this country still rely on biomass energy for their energy needs, for their cooking needs. So that's why we say 20% has to be fast maturing. So 50% is indigenous, 30% is fruit and founder, and then 20% is fast maturing. And we are also saying that we'll plant through this program, we'll plant the right tree in the right place and for the right reason. In the right place means land that you have control over. And we think that while the initiative really has not kicked a lot of interest or storm in 2021, over the past 9 months, we've seen a lot of interest in this, because the President of the Republic has also seen that the government is going to support the planting of 15 billion trees in the next 10 years. So KENAFF has really joined that initiative. We are really supporting the President's agenda, but we are still sticking to our formula that, we plant 50% indigenous, 30% fruit and founder, 20% fast maturing, and then again, the precept that we will plant these trees in the right place, the right tree in the right place and for the right reason. And we think just in this in itself, KENAFF is going to, or the farmers of this country really, because it's the farmers who are going to plant these trees, are going to contribute a lot to climate action, because that is what we are talking about all over this week. And at the same time, also using the 4 organs that I've talked about, continue agitating at the different levels, at the national level and the county level, and in all other forums that they have access to on issues to do with access to land, control over land, and land use management policies. I think I'll leave it there, Carol. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Daniel.